That's my breaking news alarm here. Breaking news! A recent study has confirmed the long-standing theory that there are, in fact, a lot of movies out there. I know, some could say that the figure could be as high as 10. Jokes aside, though, there are a multitude of incredible films to watch, and with streaming services offering up everything we could ever want on a silver platter, it's very easy for great movies and moments to get lost in the shuffle. Now, this is a travesty, as there are thousands of incredible scenes in movies that people just haven't seen or remember because they wanted to watch Captain America for the 15th time around. So let's give these scenes another chance to shine like the bright diamonds they are. As I'm Jules, this is Whatculture.com, and these are 10 movie scenes that are very, very awesome, but nobody talks about. Number 10, we're on the radio. That Thing You Do. The directing debut of one Mr. Tom Hanks, That Thing You Do is about the Wonders, a small-time 60s pop group who have a hit song called, well, That Thing You Do. The movie was very well liked upon its release, and the song even bagged itself an Oscar nomination. But the scene we're talking about is when the band first hear their work on the radio. Liv Tyler's character Faye hears the song being played and goes absolutely ballistic. Not only does she almost forget to post her letters, but she also begins screaming wildly with joy before running off to tell the band the good news. Faye collects the various members on her journey, disturbing the peace as she does, and the elated musicians and their friends tune every single radio set in the shop to the station playing their song as they dance around like maniacs. The scene is joy personified and perfectly captures the unbridled happiness felt when hard work finally pays off. As the film's events unfold, this scene actually becomes bittersweet in retrospect. However, at the time, it was great to just sit back and watch the frenzy. Number 9, A Very Waititi Funeral, Hunt for the Wilder People. Evidenced by his roles in Jojo Rabbit, What We Do in the Shadows, and Thor Ragnarok, Taika Waititi is a very, very funny man. The director-turned-actor never fails to split sides when delivering one of his trademark dry statements, and nowhere is this more true than his 2016 movie, Hunt for the Wilder People. Now, this film is about the bond formed between a bitter old man and a young boy as they camp out in the New Zealand wilderness. The film is very touching and a real tearjerker. However, as you can see in this scene that we're about to talk about, it's also bloody hilarious. Early on in the film, Ricky and Hector attend the funeral of Auntie Bella, which is presided over by an eccentric minister played by Waititi. In front of a tragically sparse audience, the minister delivers a sermon about the different doors that we can all walk through in life. What begins as a simple metaphor soon divulges into a surreal monologue about Jesus, vegetables, and Coke Zero. Aside from being really funny, the scene also sets the film's darkly comic tone perfectly. If you're ever in need of a slightly confusing chuckle, then give this one a watch. Number 8, Chasing the Scrolls, The Adventures of Tintin. 2011's The Adventures of Tintin is adapted from the Secret of the Unicorn story from the cartoons of the same name. It tracks the titular journalist, his seafaring friend Captain Haddock, and his trusty hound Snowy as they attempt to unravel the mystery surrounding a sunken ship and its treasure. The film is a classic adventure filled with all the charm that you'd expect from a Steven Spielberg-produced picture. The animation is also smooth as silk, which is showcased in this epic chase sequence through the streets of Bagar. Now, there are a lot of moving parts to this chase. Not only do we have the three heroes, but there's also the villain and his pet hawk as well, plus a tank being driven by unknown forces just plowing through the entire city. The action is all over the place in the best way possible, taking place not just on the roads, but also on foot and water as well. The whole thing is done in one continuous shot as well, and so looks gorgeous, and it's easily one of the best animated sequences around at the time. Capturing the old school adventure spirit of the comics to perfection, this scene alone makes The Adventures of Tintin worth every moment of your time. Number 7, I Don't Think I'll Ever Dry Out, Big Fish. Tim Burton's best film, except maybe Ed Wood or The Batman's, is 2003's Big Fish. Now here, Will Bloom is forced to confront his estranged father, Edward, when he learns that the old man is dying of cancer. Will has felt humiliated and upstaged by his father's tall tales his entire life, but as Edward's story comes to an end, his son discovers that fact and fiction may not actually be that different after all. The film is full of underrated moments, but the best part of the whole picture is a 90-second section that takes place in a bathtub. You see, Edward is in the bath, fully clothed and submerged in water. His wife Sandra also joins him, stepping into the bath also in full dress. The steadfast Sandra finally lets the weight of her husband's diagnosis get to her, and she begins to cry. Edward does his best to comfort her, but all she can say is, I don't think I'll ever dry out. Unusual, intimate, and unfathomably sad, this scene is everything that is perfect about Big Fish. It's a reminder that people will do very strange things when they are in love, especially when they think that that love is about to be taken away. Number 6, Trapped in the basement, Zodiac. The Zodiac Killer remains one of the most elusive and fascinating unidentified serial killers ever. Operating in Northern California in the 1960s, the killer has at least 5 deaths on their hands, with the potential of dozens of unfound victims. Copious amounts of fiction has been created about the Zodiac Killer, and one of the most famous is David Fincher's 2007 film Zodiac. Starring Jake Gyllenhaal, Robert Downey Jr. and Mark Ruffalo, this movie tells a semi-fictionalized version of events surrounding the murders and one man's hunt to unearth the killer. The movie is tense throughout, but by far the most edge-of-your-seat moment is when Gyllenhaal's character Robert Graysmith visits the suspected murderer at his home. The tension is through the roof as they enter the basement of Bob Vaughn, played by Charles Fleischer. Things only get worse for viewers when Graysmith realizes how much danger he's in and desperately tries to flee the dwelling before he becomes the next victim. Although you'd expect nothing less from an expert like Fincher, this scene is extraordinarily gripping and not one to watch if you're already feeling highly strung. Number 5. Audio description, Amélie. Amélie is a delightful French-language romantic comedy about a woman who deals with her own sadness through being kind to others. Raised by an eccentric father, the Parisian protagonist lives an isolated existence until she discovers a box in her home that is full of items belonging to a former resident. She makes it her mission to deliver the items back to their owner, thus bringing them joy. Across the course of the movie, Amélie interacts with many different people living in the French capital. One such interaction is with a blind man, whom the heroine helps across the street. What begins as a simple act of kindness soon turns into a whirlwind of frantic words, as Amélie takes the time to describe anything around them in great detail. The clothes of other people, the price of pork in the butcher's, the fruit on sale at the market. Amélie enlightens her friend on all of it. When she leaves him, he literally lights up with joy, as though he's seen the world for the first time in a long while. It is a beautiful scene from a beautiful movie, and this moment extols the virtues of helping others whilst also reminding its audience not to take the little things for granted. Number 4. The Shootout at the Guggenheim, The International. An action thriller from 2009, The International is a fairly bland movie about 2 law enforcers investigating crimes at the major European bank. It's got some star power in the form of Clive Owen and Naomi Watts, but it lacks anything to set it out from other movies in a similar vein. But that being said, this action sequence is awesome. Owen's detective Salinger follows up on a lead of the assassination of an Italian prime ministerial candidate. His investigation leads him to a doctor, whom Salinger follows to the Solomon R. Guggenheim Museum in New York. The museum, famous for its vast collection of art from across the ages, is a very distinctive building, as well as being a World Heritage Site. Now, these qualities only add to the excitement when a massive gunfight breaks out within its walls in the middle of the film. Salinger and his associates are attacked by a band of gunmen and must fight them off across the iconic building. The action is heightened by the scene's score and the presence of dozens of civilians in the gallery, something that Salinger is all too aware of. Should you watch The International? Probably not, but should you watch this scene on YouTube? Oh, absolutely. Number 3. A Liquid Abyss, Under the Skin. Directed by the man behind the music video for Radiohead's Karma Police, it should come as no surprise that 2013's Under the Skin is a complete trip. Centered around Scarlett Johansson's character, a mysterious woman who stalks and kills men in and around Glasgow, Scotland, Under the Skin is easily one of the best British movies of the last 2 decades. Now, part of what makes it such a great film is the presence of a strange liquid that the woman uses to entrap her victims. We first see the liquid towards the beginning of the movie when Scar Joe entices a man into it. However, we get our most detailed glimpse of it later on in the film. The woman picks up another man at a nightclub and leads him into the abyss. We see the man floating in the solution where he spots another casualty of the seemingly mindless rampage. The man from the nightclub reaches out to touch his fellow captive, only for his body to crumple in on itself. A red slurry is then seen flowing through a trough. Want to know more? Of course you do, which is why you should watch Under the Skin. Number 2. Ray's Funeral, The Princess and the Frog. Now, Pixar have cornered the market when it comes to children's films that make adults cry like babies. Whether it's Ellie and Carl in Up, Mama Coco in Coco, or Bing Bong in Inside Out, the studio has thousands of ways to make people weep, and you can guarantee that it will use every single one of them before it stops making movies. But don't count out regular old Disney just yet. The House of Mouse also has some tearjerkers in their back catalogue, such as this moment from 2009's The Princess and the Frog. The 2 lead amphibians make friends with a number of swamp creatures on their journey, including a firefly named Ray. Ray is instrumental in saving the day during the film's climax, but is mortally wounded by the movie's baddie. After the action is over, Ray's friends gather round him for one last goodbye before he sets off for the big bayou in the sky. The insect's passing and subsequent funeral are both incredibly sad, as viewers have grown to love Ray throughout this movie. Tissues at the ready for this one, my friends, because no kids' movie is safe anymore. And number 1, the ending. AI artificial intelligence. Now, I'll just go out on the record and say that AI artificial intelligence is not a good movie. It's made by some great people, but it is not a good movie. But still, there's something about that ending that just will sit with you for absolutely ages afterwards. Because while it's definitely schmaltzy at points, AI is a poignant story about the adventures of being alive and the extraordinary bond between mother and child, and that last point hits home hard during the film's final scene. The movie's ending is actually set thousands of years into the future, when the Swinton family that took David in are long dead. The boy is then revived by a group of futuristic robots and is distraught to find that his family are gone. However, using a strand of his human mother's hair, the machines are able to bring her back as a projection so that David can spend one last day with her. Watching David and his mother lie down together one last time is an image that can warm even the coldest of hearts. AI definitely is not a brilliant movie, but its ending will definitely make you want to call your mum and tell her how much you love her.